Hello, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about our volunteer activity at the University of Michigan Campus Farm. The Campus Farm is a volunteer-driven sustainable food system at the University of Michigan that helps provide fresh fruit and produce to campus dining, as well as the Maize and Blue Cupboard project.
We were working on the campus farm, which is looking on the University of Michigan, comply with all COVID goals. Our goals were to harvest as many beans as possible within the 4 rows, harvesting 3 different varieties of beans at the time. Some safety measures and concerns. There were no protective tooling or equipment, and we were kneeling on invasive species. We were subject to environmental conditions as well as potential harmful residue, and there are some long-term ergonomic issues at hand. Some general concerns include a lack of direction and supervision, and some distinct lack of signage of visual representations of what we're harvesting. The current process was to find the beans looking in the ground, inspect them looking for blemishes, holes, or holes from rodents or insects or odd impurities. If it was good, you picked it, collected in a bucket which held about 50. If it was blemished, you removed it from the plant and tossed it in the ground so you could fertilize the ground and no other volunteers would harvest it. If it was too small, you left it so it could grow and then other volunteers can harvest it at a later date. When the bucket was full, you collected the buckets and walked them back to the end of the line to dump it into the tote for the campus farm, and you continued until the rows were fully harvested.
So just looking at this process in a little bit more in depth, we tried to conduct a MODAPS analysis on one cycle, which included filling the bucket with about 50 beans, emptying it into the larger totes, and then returning to our work area. MODAPS analysis showed that this took a little bit over 5 minutes. However, when considering our work standards, we needed to take into consideration that MODAPS does not fully consider the search time, as not every plant has, a large number of beans on it. So sometimes you're, searching a little bit harder, so it took more time, as well as the need for some breaks. So accounting for this, we feel that a fair work standard would be for volunteers to average one full bucket every 7 minutes. Next, we also wanted to emphasize kind of the importance of proper posture in terms of ergonomic health. People had a wide variety of postures and picking methods because there wasn't a very straightforward instructions there. It's really important for your long-term health to ensure that you're hinging at the hip and keeping your back straight. Here we have a few example postures with some reach limits for a 5th percentile female as well as a 95th percentile male. And here you can see some of this, how far you could reach on an example plot.
Some recommendations we have for the campus farm: assigning specific areas for workers to harvest from. This would ensure that every area is evenly picked and limited wasted search time. We spent about an hour on this activity for the farm, and we expect that it would reduce to about 40 or 30 minutes, and you could even increase your output by 50%. Providing key information on sheets and note cards, such as example pictures of ripe plants of each variety, the size, the color, etc., as well as helpful tips of what to look out for when harvesting. We expect that this would increase correct production by around 30 to 40% per some of our sources. We also think that providing pad or other knee protection, as well as emphasizing the use of proper working posture, will reduce the risk of a potential injury while working at this activity. And finally, adding more volunteers simply by working with longer hours and an upskilling system, as well as partnering with orgs and clubs on campus or even around the area, such as fraternities, sororities, potential environmentalist clubs, or even just some of the teams and athletic groups. This would allow for a large increase in the number of volunteers. And these longer hours combined with the higher number of volunteers will allow the farm to specialize and delegate the volunteers to specific activities. In this 2-hour task, we were working on 2 different sites, as well as carrying stuff back and forth. And by working longer hours, you would get better at those specific tasks and potentially produce at a higher rate. We expect by doubling the volunteers and specializing, you would triple the amount of production that you would put out.
So just looking at a few examples of recommendations, things like pads either on the ground or on your knees would both help protect workers as well as emphasize proper posture. You can see here a few different examples of what like good posture would be, either squatting down or kind of kneeling back. But the important thing here is that they're hinging at the hip and making sure to keep their back straight. In terms of information cards, we think it would be really good to have information on, what to look for, like specific pictures, as well as some information about what a ripe plant would look like, maybe even some helpful hints on things to make sure you're looking out for. And then in terms of signage, it would be nice just to have actual indicators of what was growing where to help limit some of our search and make sure we're in the correct areas. We thank you for your time and listening to our presentation and hope you have a great day.